One of the biggest cyber attacks in history.
The most disruptive and destructive series of computer attacks ever attributed to a single group.
Ethical hacking is the legal profession of breaking into computer systems. Typically, it's into an organization's network of computer systems, and essentially you're getting paid to do it. So it's a pretty cool job if you're good at it. White hat hacking refers to someone that is hired or paid by an organization to try and find vulnerabilities in their systems or networks. A black hat hacker does it illegally. It's the example of trying to hack someone's Instagram account or maybe, stealing their WhatsApp chat history. Grey hat is actually more interesting. It sits in between the two. They're not directly hired by an organization to, hack their systems, but they do sometimes operate within that realm. You're seeing a lot more application of grey hat hacking, given that these cyber attacks on the rise. There is a continuing growth of hackers who are sort of trying to figure out ways or other alternate ways to increase their income. Our communication is all digital, so it's almost opened the scope of a possibility for hackers and data exploitation to be possible. Governments actually care or understand that this is now a national security priority.
The experts are saying that this has been one of the worst years ever, if not the worst year ever, for ransomware.
I want to update everyone on the ransomware cyber attack that impacted on the Colonial Pipeline over this past week.
To explain ransomware, first you have to understand what malware is. Malware is software where its intent is to harm someone's computer system or network. And so that includes everything from viruses to worms to spyware. Ransomware is quite new. This is a very specific type of malware that encrypts a victim's data. So say, for example, you have your laptop and someone's injected some ransomware onto your system. What that will do is it will lock all of the data on your system, making it inaccessible for you. And the idea is that the hacker won't release that lock unless you pay a ransom. I think this is more interesting, less so for, me and yourself. It's more interesting for organizations. Data is essentially, for many of these companies, their product. It's really important for them to retain their users' trust, so that they continue sharing their activity data on these apps. So it's often a choice between, okay, do we pay this small amount in the grand scheme of things in order to retain, what is our entire company, or do we let it go?
Even as American companies are getting clobbered by the hackers, they're also struggling to find enough people to defend themselves. Demand for cyber workers hits a historic high this quarter.
It's more important than ever, especially for organizations, to invest in their own infrastructure to protect the data that they have. Simply relying on their own internal workforce to guarantee the security of their own systems is quite silly, to put it frankly. And I think now you have a lot more bounty programs in place by these big tech companies, Google, Microsoft, Facebook. They actually pay you to, if you find a vulnerability in their system.
I know Verizon Digital Media actually just passed $7 million in bounties paid. Uber has paid out over $2 million.
And that's to compensate for your efforts, but also to make sure that you don't go ahead and exploit the systems. Unfortunately, there isn't an easy, clear career path for becoming an ethical hacker. Unlike software engineering, there aren't clear and organized structures in place to be able to facilitate programs where students can then go on to work in the industry. Networking plays a much bigger role than it does compared to other industries. And so there is something called CTFs. If you've played a first-person shooter before, Capture the Flag. Capture the Flags are a kind of ethical hacking game, and most often it's sponsored by organizations. Depending on what team you're on, you might be attacking the system, or you might be defending the system. But the underlying point is CTF is a security competition, and it allows you to practice your skills, again, in a legal and safe environment. But also that's the place where a lot of organizations are starting to sponsor and also recruit from.